The waiter accidentally spilled a glass of champagne on the millionaire CEO. The man shot to his feet, furious and humiliated. Under the stare of the entire room, he shouted for clippers immediately. The clippers were brought in within seconds, and to everyone's shock, he calmly shaved the young waiter's head, all just to entertain himself and his wealthy friends. Then, suddenly, the grand doors of the ballroom swung open. His father walked in, a quiet, powerful man, and the one who had financed the entire event tonight. What no one in the room knew was this: he never forgave, and he always protected what belonged to him, at any cost. But before we dive deeper into this story, leave me a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because what's about to unfold will stay with you long after the story ends. Michael Callahan's legs felt like they were about to give out. He had been standing and working at the Grand Roosevelt Ballroom for 7 straight hours, serving champagne to Manhattan's upper class during Technovale Corporation's charity auction. His black uniform was neatly pressed, his brown hair trimmed clean, his professional smile always in place, despite the exhaustion gnawing at every bone in his body. Michael was only 28. He worked 2 jobs at once to pay for treatment for Maisie, his 7-year-old daughter, who was fighting leukemia. And tonight, this shift meant an extra $300 that he desperately needed. But there was one truth almost no one knew about Michael Callahan. He was the son of Vincent Callahan, a name that made the entire New York underworld tread carefully. The patriarch of the Callahan family, one of the 5 most powerful Mafia families in the city. Michael had grown up in a mansion guarded by bodyguards, grown up hearing gunshots echo in the dark, grown up watching his father only have to open his mouth for an entire line of people to tremble in obedience. And he hated all of it. Every minute, every second. At 18, Michael told his father outright, "I don't want this life. I don't want to live in an empire built on blood and tears." Vincent Callahan, the man who could make even the governor bow his head, simply looked at him in silence, then nodded. "If that is the path you want, I'll respect it. But remember this, Michael, no matter how far you go, you are still my blood, and I will always protect you." Michael left that very day, changed his phone number, rented a small apartment in Queens, took normal jobs, lived a normal life, sought the peace he had never known inside the Callahan family. Then he met Helena, a pediatric nurse with a smile warm as sunlight and gentle blue eyes. They fell in love, got married, and Maisie was born, the little girl with golden hair and a laugh like silver bells. Michael thought he had finally found happiness, thought he had escaped the shadow of the Callahan dynasty, until 2 years ago, when Helena died in a car accident. Michael shattered completely. But Maisie needed him. The 3-year-old didn't understand why her mother wasn't coming back. She cried every night, and Michael had to hold her, sing lullabies, try to become both father and mother. A year later, the second lightning strike hit: acute leukemia. Treatment cost? $15,000 a month. Insurance covered only part of it. Michael needed just one phone call, just one, and Vincent Callahan would pay for everything in an instant. But that meant returning to the world he had abandoned, meant being in his father's debt, meant reopening a door he had locked 10 years ago. So Michael threw himself into work. Mornings at a cafe, evenings as a server at upscale events, 4 hours of sleep a night. Waking up with Maisie, making breakfast, taking her to the hospital for chemotherapy, then running to work. Repeat. Day after day. no complaints, because his daughter deserved a life untouched by the stains of the underworld. And tonight, in this ballroom, Michael was just an anonymous waiter. No one knew who he was. No one knew what blood ran in his veins. And Michael liked it that way. Table 14 needed a champagne refill. 6 men in suits more expensive than the car he drove. Their voices louder with alcohol and arrogance. Their laughter sharp as knives, dripping with cruelty. Michael recognized the man at the head of the table the moment he saw him. Bradley "Brad" Mercer, 32, CEO of Technovale, estimated net worth $800 million. Infamous for ruthless acquisitions and a personality even more ruthless than that. Michael approached, his hand balancing the champagne bottle perfectly. Movements practiced despite his exhausted body. Brad extended his glass toward him without even lifting his eyes from his phone, as if Michael were nothing more than a piece of furniture, as if his existence didn't matter. Michael poured slowly, the golden champagne flowing smoothly, until one man at the table suddenly burst out laughing and slammed his hand on the table. Champagne splashed over the rim and spilled straight onto Brad's tailored suit, soaking into his jacket, his pants, and igniting his explosive fury. The entire table fell instantly silent. "God!" Michael gasped, scrambling for a napkin. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me—" "Do you know what you just did?" Brad shot to his feet, his face flushing purple with rage. "This suit costs $15,000. Michael's hands trembled as he tried to dab the champagne. "Sir, I am truly sorry. It was an accident. I'll get the manager right away. I will—" "An accident!" Brad's voice thundered through the ballroom. The orchestra stopped abruptly. Conversations died out. Hundreds of eyes all turned toward them at once. "You just destroyed $15,000 worth of Italian wool only because you're so incompetent you can't even hold a bottle?" Brad shouted into his face. "Sir, please let me—" "What can you do?" Brad seized Michael's wrist, squeezing until the skin started to turn purple. "Pay for this? With your tips?" His friends burst into laughter. Their phones were raised, recording, capturing every second of Michael's humiliation, just for their entertainment. A sharp burn filled Michael's eyes, but he fought the tears back. "I'll pay for the dry cleaning. I'll take extra shifts. I will—" "You'll do more than that," Brad growled. "Someone bring me scissors, right now." Michael's blood turned to ice. "What?" "I said bring the scissors!" Brad roared. "This useless waiter needs to learn how to respect his superiors." "Mr. Mercer, please!" Michael tried to pull his hand back, but Brad's grip was like a steel vise. "This isn't—" Another staff member appeared, hands shaking, face pale, holding a pair of scissors from the kitchen. Brad snatched them violently. Michael cried out in panic, "No, please! I'm sorry! I'll do anything!" Too late for apologies. Brad grabbed a fistful of Michael's hair he had carefully combed that morning. He yanked his head back so hard Michael's neck burned with pain. "Stop!" Michael choked, his voice breaking. But no one moved. No one spoke. No one helped him. They just stood there, phones pointed at him, recording every second of his destruction. Brad opened the scissors and began cutting. Strands of brown hair fell onto the marble floor like birds shot from the sky. Each snip felt like a blade slicing into his dignity, pieces of his pride being severed in front of 300 people watching. Brad wasn't gentle. He wasn't careful. He hacked at the hair wildly, leaving jagged patches, uneven tufts, grotesque shapes. Michael felt himself breaking apart, shattering right there in that dazzling room. Tears streamed down his cheeks as the hair, the hair he always kept neat to look presentable for work, piled around him in clumps. Brad laughed through the whole thing, as if he were performing for the crowd, performing for the cameras, performing for his own cruel pleasure. In Michael's mind, images flashed. Maisie lying on a hospital bed, her frail voice asking, "Daddy, why are they being so mean to you?" Helena, before she died, whispering, "I want our child to grow up in a kinder world." And Vincent Callahan, 10 years ago, "No matter how far you go, you are still my blood." Michael bit down hard, swallowing the tears. He couldn't call his father. He couldn't return to the world he had sworn to leave behind. But this humiliation, this public, brutal humiliation, burned through him like acid. Done! Brad finally released him, shoving Michael so hard he stumbled. "Now we're even. Your hair for my suit. Fair deal." Michael stood frozen, his whole body shaking. His hand rose instinctively to his head, touching the broken, uneven tufts. The shame surged up, hot and searing like flames. The room was dead silent, save for muffled laughter and the clicking of phones recording him. He wanted to disappear, to dissolve into the air, to die right then. When the ballroom's grand doors burst open, the sound echoed through the silent room like a gunshot in the night. A man stepped in, and the atmosphere changed instantly. He wore a black suit that fit him like it had been tailored to every line of his body. His silver hair was combed back perfectly. His mere presence was enough to fill the entire room without him saying a single word. He moved with the kind of quiet power that made billionaires step aside without realizing it, made security guards straighten their shoulders, made even the air itself grow heavier. Michael stopped breathing. "Father." Vincent Callahan appeared, walking with slow, deliberate steps. His steel-gray eyes swept across the crowd until they landed on Michael, on the tears clinging to his face, on the butchered hair, on Brad Mercer still holding the scissors. For 5 seconds, no one in the room could breathe. Then Vincent Callahan stepped forward, his footsteps sharp against the marble floor. The crowd split open before him as though an invisible force pushed them aside, like the Red Sea parting. When he reached Michael, he said nothing. He simply removed his suit jacket, slow and precise, and draped it over his trembling son's shoulders, shielding him, protecting him, claiming him. "Stand up, son." Vincent spoke in English, his voice carrying a faint old Irish lilt. It was gentle, full of love, and terrifying enough to send a chill through the entire ballroom. Michael struggled to stand on shaky legs, and Vincent placed a hand on his back, guiding him behind him. He positioned his own body between Michael and Brad, a living shield. Then he turned and faced Brad Mercer. The temperature of the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. "You've made a mistake," Vincent said, his voice soft as a breeze. No shouting, yet every syllable radiated menace. Brad's arrogant smirk faltered. "Hey, old man, I don't know who you think you are, but this waiter, That is not a waiter," Vincent cut in, still calm but so cold it was almost lethal. "That is my son, and you just assaulted him, in a room that I own, at an event that I sponsored, in front of cameras that will make you famous for all the worst reasons." Brad's face drained of color. Whispers rippled through the room. Callahan. Vincent Callahan. The Kingpin. The Ghost of New York. Vincent smiled, and it was the most terrifying smile Michael had ever seen him wear. "You like cutting hair?" Vincent asked conversationally. "Then let's see how you feel when someone cuts what you value." He pulled out his phone and made a call. In less than 60 seconds, 6 men in black suits entered the room. moving with the precision of a tactical unit. "Security," Vincent said calmly. "Escort Mr. Mercer and his friends outside, and make sure every camera captures their faces clearly." "Wait!" Brad choked out. "You can't—" "I can do anything I want," Vincent replied, lowering his voice to a whisper that still struck the entire room like thunder. "This is New York. This is my event. This is my son. And you, Mr. Mercer, just declared war on the wrong family." The security team stepped in, gripping Brad's arms with well-practiced control. Brad thrashed, screamed, but it was useless. These were Vincent Callahan's men. "Let me go. Do you know who I am? My company is worth hundreds of millions. I will destroy you." Vincent's expression didn't shift even a millimeter. "You're worth 800 million, he corrected smoothly. "I'm worth 6 billion. Your company makes software. My family controls the ports, the shipping lanes, the construction unions, and half the city council. So please, Mr. Mercer, remind me again, how exactly do you plan to destroy me?" Brad froze. Reality crashed down on him like a collapsing building. You're Callahan," he whispered. "Vincent Callahan, the ghost of Manhattan." "Correct," Vincent finished cleanly. "And you just cut my son's hair for entertainment. So, Mr. Mercer, I will cut everything you love, starting with your company." Security dragged Brad away. His protests morphed into desperate screams. His friends, the ones who had been laughing moments before, suddenly pretended they didn't know him at all. The room was packed with people, yet silent enough for every breath to be heard. Vincent turned back to Michael. The dangerous expression vanished, replaced by the warm father Michael once remembered. "Let's go home, son," he said softly, the words touching Michael's heart like a gentle hand. But as Michael looked into his father's eyes, he saw something deeper, something darker, quieter, heavier. This story wasn't over. It was only beginning. And Brad Mercer had no idea what storm was coming for him. Outside, as Vincent's driver opened the car door, Michael raised a hand to touch his butchered hair. And the sob burst out again, not because of pain, but because of the humiliation, the shame that would cling to him for the rest of his life. Vincent pulled him close, holding him tight as he cried like a child. "I'm sorry," Michael choked out. "I ruined your event. I embarrassed you." "You have nothing to apologize for," Vincent said, his voice firm and absolute. "Nothing at all. What happened tonight wasn't your fault. It was his. And Michael, listen to me. Before I'm done with Brad Mercer, he will wish he had never been born." Something in his father's tone made Michael shiver. Not fear of Vincent, but fear of what Vincent was about to unleash. Yet, deep inside him, a part, the part he had tried to kill for 10 years, stirred awake. A dark satisfaction. The Callahan blood he had tried to deny. The part that understood. Some lines must never be crossed. And Brad Mercer had crossed every single one. The car took them to the penthouse in Tribeca, a building Vincent owned through 6 shell companies, an entire floor turned into a fortified and luxurious sanctuary. Michael sat silently, still wrapped in his father's blazer. His hands trembled on his lap. Every time he reached for his head, feeling the jagged patches of hair, new tears slipped down his cheeks. Vincent didn't speak for the entire ride. He just held his son's hand, his thumb drawing calm circles. Even while his jaw was clenched so tight, Michael could see the muscle twitching. When they reached the penthouse, Vincent guided him inside with gentle hands, helped him sit on the sofa, and disappeared into the bathroom. A few minutes later, he returned with a medical kit. "Your wrist," he said, kneeling in front of him. Michael looked down. Bruises shaped like fingers were forming where Brad had grabbed him. He hadn't even noticed the pain until now. Vincent's hands were tender, fragile, as if handling something that could break at any second. He applied ointment, wrapped Michael's wrist in soft bandages, each motion careful, respectful, like tending to something precious. But his eyes were the eyes of a man who could kill without blinking. "I'm calling Marco," Vincent said, standing up. "No." Michael grabbed his father's hand. "Dad, please, don't do anything reckless." Vincent looked at him, at the ruined hair, the tear-streaked face, the bandaged wrist. "Too late, son," he replied, his voice soft but sharp as a blade. "It was over long ago." He walked into his office and closed the door. Michael sat there, shaking. He knew that behind that door, his father was making calls powerful enough to destroy an entire life. He knew he should feel guilty, that he should try to stop him. But all he felt was a burning desire for Brad Mercer to suffer exactly what he had suffered. In the office, Vincent made the first call. Marco, his second-in-command, picked up after the first ring. "Boss, I saw the video. It's everywhere. How's Michael?" "Alive," Vincent answered, voice cold as ice. "Humiliated, disrespected, but alive." Marco was silent for 3 seconds. "What do you need?" "Everything on Brad Mercer. Company, assets, investments, weaknesses, every business deal, every bank account, every person he's crossed. And I want it all by tomorrow morning." "Consider it done." "But boss," Marco hesitated, "this will be very public. Mercer isn't some petty smuggler we can make disappear. He has influence. Bringing him down means—" "I don't care," Vincent cut in, his voice a deathly whisper. "He put his hands on my son. He humiliated him on camera. He thinks he can disgrace a Callahan and walk away? So yes, Marco, this will be public. It will be chaotic. And when I'm done, every billionaire in this city will know what happens when you touch what belongs to me." Vincent hung up and called the next person. Salvatore, the family's lawyer, who had kept the Callahans out of prison for 30 years. "Sal, I want you to file charges. Assault, battery, intentional emotional harm, everything you can against Brad Mercer and Techno Vale." Salvatore replied cautiously. "Vincent, I understand. But litigation takes time. We're looking at months, possibly—" "I don't care how long it takes," Vincent said. "I want him drowning in legal fees. I want him exhausted by depositions and hearings. I want his legal team bleeding him dry. And Sal, make every record public. I want the world to see exactly what kind of man he is. I'll have the documents ready by morning." "Good. One more thing. Find every employee Technovale ever fired, every contractor they squeezed, every investor they betrayed. I want witnesses. I want a case so tight Mercer can't bribe a single soul." Vincent hung up again and made a third call, to someone he never mentioned by name. A ghost. "It's me," Vincent said once the line connected. "I need Technovale investigated from the ground up. Environmental violations, labor violations, tax issues, anything. Dig deep. If you find something, send it to journalists who can't be bought." The person on the other end stayed silent. "And one more thing," Vincent continued. "Brad Mercer has friends, partners, investors. I want them all to receive a message. Nothing obvious, nothing traceable. Just a reminder that standing beside Mercer won't be good for their health." A pause. Then one word. "Understood." That night, Vincent made 7 more calls, to union bosses who controlled construction permits, to city officials who owed the Callahans favors, to banks that could recall loans with a single phone call, to investors who understood that stocks sometimes rose and fell, not by market logic, but by the will of men like him. By the time Vincent ended the final call, Brad Mercer's world was already primed to collapse, and he didn't even know what was coming. When Vincent stepped out of the office at 2 in the morning, he found Michael standing before the bathroom mirror, staring at his wrecked hair. Tears rolled down his face as he tried to fix it, tried to even it out. But every touch only made it worse. Vincent's heart clenched. He walked in, gently taking the scissors from his son's hand. "Let me," he said softly. Michael looked at him through the mirror, eyes red. "You can't fix it." "Maybe not," Vincent admitted. "But I can make it better." He trimmed carefully, meticulously, removing the jagged patches, evening out each line. His hands steady, even though a quiet fire of fury still burned behind his eyes. When he finished, Michael's hair was shorter, a clean, sharp buzz cut that surprisingly suited his angular face. Michael touched it lightly. "It's not as bad as I thought." "You're handsome," Vincent said with certainty. "Long hair, short hair, or no hair at all. You are still the best thing I've ever seen. And what he did to you, what he took from you, I will take back. Twice over." Michael turned to him. "I don't want you to become a monster because of me." "I'm not becoming anything," Vincent replied quietly. "I'm simply reminding the world of who I already am. A man who protects his family, at any cost." By the next morning, the video had reached 40 million views. Michael's humiliation had become a global trend. Cruel headlines flooded every platform. Tech CEO assaults waiter at charity gala. Billionaire shaves man's head after champagne spill. But then other headlines began to appear. Ones that made Brad Mercer's blood run cold. Mysterious man defends son at Manhattan gala. Who is Vincent Callahan? Callahan family ties raise safety concerns for Techno Vale. Brad woke up to 17 missed calls from PR, lawyers, and the board of directors. His phone was exploding with messages. Emergency meeting, investors pulling out, sponsors demanding explanations, criminal charges filed. His father, chairman of Techno Vale, called at 6 in the morning, voice cold as steel. "What the hell did you do?" It was just a joke," Brad panted. "The guy spilled champagne on me. I was drunk. I didn't—" "You assaulted a man on camera?" his father roared. "And not just anyone. The son of Vincent Callahan. Do you understand what you've done?" Brad's stomach dropped. "Who is Vincent Callahan?" A long silence followed, heavy as a stone crushing his chest. Then his father spoke, voice dropping to a near whisper. "We're finished, Brad. The board wants you to resign. Investors are fleeing. 3 of our biggest clients just canceled contracts. And the Callahan family," his voice cracked, "they own this entire city. You didn't attack some random waiter. You attacked the prince of the Mafia. And now, they're coming to take everything we built." That's insane." Brad backed away. "We can fight back. We can—" "There's nothing left to fight," his father cut him off. "Vincent Callahan doesn't fight in court. He doesn't play by rules. He only knows how to destroy. And you just gave him permission to destroy us." The line went dead. That afternoon, Brad Mercer's life was collapsing in front of him. He sat in an emergency board meeting at Techno Vale headquarters. 20 executives faced him, their expressions a mix of anger, disappointment, and fear. The stock had dropped 18% in 4 hours. 3 major clients had canceled contracts worth a combined $60 million. 2 board members had resigned, and the calls kept pouring in without pause. "Mr. Mercer," the CFO said, voice trembling, "we received notice that our primary bank, Sterling Financial, has terminated our relationship, effective immediately." "What?" Brad went pale. "They can't." "They can, and they have," the CFO replied coldly. "Chase Manhattan also declined to renew our credit line. If this continues, we'll run out of liquidity in 30 days. "How could this happen?" Brad shouted. "In less than 12 hours?" The room fell silent. Finally, his father spoke, voice like gravel scraping glass. "It happened because you declared war on the Callahan family. And Callahans don't just win wars, they erase enemies." Brad's phone vibrated. Another article. Exclusive. Former Technovale employees accuse company of abuse, discrimination. He opened it. 15 complaints from former employees. Harassment, hostile workplace, wrongful termination. All documented. All verified. All released this morning. "This is a coordinated attack," Brad stammered. "Someone is orchestrating this." "Yes," his father replied flatly. "Vincent Callahan is orchestrating it, and he's only getting started." A new notification appeared. The EPA was investigating Technovale facilities after an anonymous tip. Then another. The IRS had issued a tax audit for Technovale covering the past 7 years. Brad's hands shook. Each notification felt like a hammer smashing into his empire. Finally, the board voted. His father read the results slowly, like reading a death sentence. "You are suspended from your position as CEO, effective immediately. The company must distance itself from your actions. And you?" He looked directly at Brad. "Will face the criminal charges alone." "Wait!" Brad shot to his feet, voice cracking into panic. "You're throwing me to the wolves?" "We are trying to save the company you just destroyed," his father replied, cold as steel. "And Brad, from this moment on, you're on your own." 3 days later, in a desperation with no way out, Brad Mercer decided to go straight to the Callahan penthouse. Security stopped him right at the building entrance. 2 men in black suits stood like stone statues, the kind who looked like they could snap his wrist with a flick of their fingers. "I need to speak with Mr. Callahan," Brad said, trying to stay composed. "I'm here to apologize, to make things right." The 2 guards didn't move, didn't nod, didn't answer. They only looked at him with the eyes of men who already knew the fate of the person standing before them. "Please," Brad managed to choke out. "I just need 5 minutes." Finally, one of them raised a hand to his earpiece, listened, then looked at Brad with an expression that was half pity, half the look one gives a dead man walking. "Mr. Callahan says you may go up." Brad nearly exhaled in relief. A flicker of hope flooded his chest. He didn't understand. He didn't realize Vincent wasn't granting him a chance at redemption. He was merely giving him one last chance to understand the scale of his mistake. Brad stepped into the elevator, heart pounding in chaotic pulses. When the doors opened, Vincent Callahan was standing there waiting in the foyer. Alone. No bodyguards, no weapons. Just a man in a black shirt, dark trousers, and a terrifying calm. The kind of calm belonging to someone who no longer needed to act threatening. "Mr. Callahan," Brad began, "I came to—" "I know why you're here," Vincent interrupted. "You're here because you're desperate, because your world is collapsing, because you finally understand. Money cannot save you." Brad swallowed hard. "I want to apologize to your son." "He's not here," Vincent said. "I sent him away. He doesn't need to witness what's about to happen." Brad's blood ran cold. About to happen? What do you mean? Come in, Mr. Mercer, Vincent said, stepping aside as if welcoming a guest into his living room. We are going to talk about consequences. And Brad, knowing it was wrong, knowing he should run, feeling every cell in his body screaming in warning, still stepped into the penthouse. The elevator doors closed behind him with a sharp metallic sound like a coffin lid. Vincent led Brad into the expansive living room overlooking Manhattan through floor-to-ceiling glass. Every piece of furniture breathed old money and ancient power. The paintings on the walls were worth more than Brad's entire net worth. "Would you like something to drink?" Vincent asked, as he walked toward the bar cart, as if they were old friends. "No," Brad shook his head, voice trembling. "I only want to apologize to your son." "He doesn't want your apology." Vincent turned back, pouring himself a whiskey. "He wants to forget you exist. He wants to wake up tomorrow without remembering what it felt like to have his dignity stripped by a coward." Brad flinched. "I was drunk. I made a horrible mistake." "No," Vincent corrected him, voice sharp as a blade. "You were cruel. Alcohol doesn't create cruelty. It removes the mask. And what was under your mask was the real you." Vincent took a sip of whiskey, then asked, almost playfully, "How's your company?" Brad's jaw tightened. "You know exactly how it is. You're pulling the strings to destroy it." "Am I?" Vincent tilted his head. "Or am I simply removing the varnish? The EPA violations, real. The labor complaints, real. The tax discrepancies, real. I didn't create Technovale's problems. I simply made sure everyone saw them." "You're manipulating everything." "I'm applying pressure," Vincent cut in. "They're different. You lived in shadows. You exploited workers, cut corners, bought silence, buried complaints. You got away with it because you were rich, because no one wanted to challenge you." He set his glass down and walked closer. "But when someone dares to pull the curtain back, all your sins spill into the light. That is not my doing. That is your consequence." Brad's voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand," Vincent said, locking eyes with him. "What you did to Michael was not just assault. You sent a message that workers have no value, that they exist for your amusement, that you can take another person's dignity without consequence." Vincent stepped forward, and Brad instinctively backed up. "So I sent a message too, Mr. Mercer, to this entire city. A message that every person deserves dignity, and that money does not make you a god. It only makes your fall louder. I've lost everything." Brad trembled. "My company is dying. My reputation is ruined. The board fired me. My father disowned me." "What more do you want?" Vincent smiled, a smile anyone from the underworld would recognize as the signal of death. "I want you to stand before a judge and face criminal charges. I want you to hear them say your actions have consequences. I want you convicted, sentenced. And when you're in a cell, I want you to understand what helplessness feels like. This is revenge." Brad backed toward the door. "No," Vincent said slowly. "This is justice. Revenge would be me throwing you off the balcony. Justice is letting the system handle you. I don't need to cheat to destroy you. You destroyed yourself." Brad's back hit the door. His hands scrambled for the handle, shaking uncontrollably. "Before you go," Vincent said, as if remembering something, "you should know one thing. At that charity event, I donated $5 million to pediatric cancer research." He tilted his head. "And do you know how much you donated?" Brad's face drained of all color. $2,000, Vincent answered for him. The minimum required to have your name printed in the program. He stepped back, eyes turning to ice. You were there for image, to be seen. While people like Michael work 2 shifts in a row to serve champagne to people like you, people who pretend to care about charity, but really just want tax deductions and a nice photo. Then Vincent pointed to the door. Get out of my home. A beat of silence. And Mr. Mercer, Vincent continued, his voice dropping into a chilling whisper that filled the room. When you're sitting in a cell, when you've lost everything, remember this. It all happened because you couldn't control yourself for 5 seconds, because you chose cruelty over kindness, and because you forgot the simplest rule in this world. When you harm what belongs to me, there is only one response: erasure. 3 months later, Michael stood in the courtroom, witnessing Brad Mercer's sentencing. The trial moved quickly, cleanly, because the evidence was overwhelming. The video, witness testimonies, Michael's own strong, straightforward account. The jury needed only 4 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. The judge looked down at Brad with a mixture of disgust and disappointment. Mr. Mercer, she said, her voice icy, what you did was an act of profound cruelty. You used your wealth and status to humiliate a man who could not defend himself. You treated him as lesser. This court sentences you to 18 months in prison, 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and mandatory participation in an anger management program. Brad collapsed right where he stood. His attorney had to grab him before his head hit the floor. Michael felt Vincent's hand reach for his. He squeezed it. It's over now, right? He whispered. It's over, Vincent confirmed. Technovale filed for bankruptcy last week. Mercer's assets are ashes. His reputation is destroyed. And for the next 18 months, he will understand what helplessness truly feels like. Michael nodded. His hair was now neatly trimmed short. He had learned to love the buzz cut that had once been forced on him. He had also quit all of his service jobs. Vincent refused to let him return to that environment. Now, Michael worked for the Callahan family's legitimate businesses, managing their charity fund, helping other victims of power abuse, turning his own pain into a purpose. And most importantly, Maisie was recovering. Her golden hair had grown back. Her smile brightened every morning. Doctors said it was early, but the outlook was very good. Vincent had paid every medical bill. Without asking. Without expecting anything in return. Simply as a grandfather protecting his granddaughter. When they stepped out of the courthouse, reporters swarmed like waves. Mr. Callahan, how do you feel about the verdict? Michael stopped, turning to face the cameras. Justice was served, he said simply. No one should feel less valuable just because they're serving someone richer. No one should endure cruelty in silence. And I hope this case sends a clear message. Money does not make you untouchable. Kindness and respect are not optional. They are responsibilities. That night, Michael and Vincent stood on the penthouse balcony, looking out over Manhattan glowing below them. Maisie slept in the bedroom, clutching her teddy bear, breathing steadily, peacefully. I know you don't want to return to this world, Vincent said quietly, eyes fixed on the skyline. I respect that. But Michael, you must understand one thing. You will always be a Callahan. And that means you will always be protected. Michael turned to his father, his voice low. I know who you are. I know what our family is. I know the Callahan name is tied to power, to fear, to things that happen in the dark. But Dad, when I needed protection, When I needed justice, you didn't hesitate. You used everything you had. Everything to make him pay. Michael stepped closer. So, thank you for becoming my monster when I needed a monster. Vincent pulled his son into a tight embrace. For you, my boy, I will be whatever you need. A monster, a protector, a father, a destroyer, anything, as long as it keeps you safe. They stood there, holding each other under the city lights. A city that now fully understood one truth no one would dare test again. When you cross the Callahan family, you pay the price. Brad Mercer would spend 18 months in prison. His company was dead. His assets gone. His name forever tied to one of the most shameful viral videos in internet history. But more important was the lesson the city carved into memory. Money doesn't make you invincible. Power is not a shield. And if you forget that every person deserves dignity, if you treat cruelty as entertainment, there will be consequences. Real. Permanent. Devastating. 1 year later. Michael stood in the office of the Callahan Foundation, looking out the glass window toward the city shifting beneath the morning sun. His hair had grown a little longer, but he kept the shortcut, a reminder of what he'd endured, and what he would never forget. On his desk, standing out among the stacks of paperwork, was a photo. Maisie, her golden hair grown back to her shoulders, beaming as she held up a sign. 2 years cancer-free. She had won. And they, the two Callahans, had won too. The door opened. Vincent walked in, holding a brown folder. A woman reached out to the foundation, he said, placing the file in front of his son. Her boss harassed her at work. When she spoke up, they fired her on the spot. She needs a lawyer, but she doesn't have the money. Michael opened the file. A familiar story. Another person crushed under the wheels of power. We'll help her, he said without hesitation. Vincent smiled, his eyes softening in the way only a father's eyes do. I knew you'd say that. And in that moment, Michael understood something clearly. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't mafia. It wasn't darkness. This was justice. Using power not to crush someone, but to lift up those who deserve to be lifted. Using resources not to control, but to protect. And Michael Callahan, the son who once ran from his father's legacy, finally understood something he had always tried to deny. You don't need to become a monster to face monsters. You only need to stand up, to fight, to use whatever tools you have to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And sometimes, that tool is a father whose connections run deep through the most powerful corridors of the city. Michael's phone buzzed. A message from Maisie, at school. Daddy, I got an A in science. Love you. A slow smile spread across his face. This was the reason. It had always been the reason. Anyone who dared threaten this family, anyone who thought cruelty would go unpunished, would soon learn the same lesson Brad Mercer learned. Some people you cannot touch. Some lines you do not cross. And the Callahan family? They always protect what is theirs. If you believe power exists to protect the weak, not to crush them, hit subscribe now. Leave a comment telling me what you would do if you were in Michael's shoes. Share this story with someone who needs to know that justice isn't only for the rich. And remember, when someone truly loves you, they will burn the world down to keep you safe.